I spent 17 years building a life with a woman who was living a double life. That's the truth I carry now, but back then, 6 months ago, I was just Ethan Hayes, night shift supervisor at Midwest Steel Works, coming home at dawn to find my wife already dressed for work. Laura stood at the kitchen counter that morning, her coffee cup empty, her eyes avoiding mine as she smoothed her new blazer. Another new blazer, the third this month. Running late again? I asked, hanging my hard hat on the hook by the door. Early. Meeting, she replied quickly, grabbing her purse. She kissed my cheek. Quick. Distracted. There's leftover lasagna in the fridge. Laura, wait, I started to say. But she was already gone, the door clicking shut, her heels clicking down our driveway. I watched through the window as her Camry backed out, noticed how she checked her reflection in the rearview mirror, fixing her lipstick. When had she started wearing lipstick to work? I poured myself the dregs of her coffee pot, cold and bitter, and tried to remember when things had shifted. We'd been good once. Hell, we'd been great. I could still picture her at 23, working the late shift at Murphy's Diner, bringing me free pie during my dinner breaks when I was still a welder. That laugh of hers could fill a room. Her parents, Frank and Dorothy, had welcomed me, like the son they'd never had. Sunday dinners at their place, Frank and I watching football while Laura and her mother cooked. Simple, steady, real. Our wedding had been small, 40 people in the VFW hall, Laura radiant in her grandmother's altered dress. We'd honeymooned in Branson because that's what we could afford, and she'd held my hand during every cheesy show, her joy infectious. We'd built our life carefully, deliberately. The house came after 5 years of saving, the promotion to supervisor after 10 years of never missing a shift. We'd talked about kids, but the timing never seemed right, and then somehow we were 38 and 37, and the conversation just stopped happening. But we were solid. Or I'd thought we were solid. The changes started 6 months ago. Laura's entry-level office job at Morrison & Associates, a job she'd taken just to contribute something after her retail position got eliminated, suddenly involved important meetings and corporate dinners. She'd come home talking about presentations and quarterly reports, using terms like stakeholder engagement and vertical integration that sounded hollow coming from someone who'd been folding sweaters at Target just months earlier. Logan from the marketing team thinks I have real potential, she'd said last week, eyes bright with something I didn't recognize. He's recommending me for the development program. Logan. The name had started appearing in every other sentence. Logan said, this. Logan suggested that. Logan knew the best sushi place downtown. Since when did Laura eat sushi? Let's try that new Italian place on 5th Street, I'd suggested last weekend. I'm exhausted, Ethan, she'd answered without looking up from her phone. These 12-hour days are killing me. Can we just order Chinese? 12-hour days at an entry-level office job. I'd supervised men for 20 years. I knew what exhaustion looked like. This wasn't it. I headed to the bedroom to shower off my shift, and her purse sat open on the dresser. My head was pounding. Too much coffee, not enough sleep, and I reached for the aspirin I knew she kept in the side pocket. My fingers found a receipt instead. Nordstrom. $400. One dress. I stared at it, trying to make sense of the numbers. We'd agreed on a budget. We always agreed on the budget. Major purchases got discussed at the kitchen table with the checkbook between us. It's how we'd survived my 6-month layoff 5 years ago. It's how we'd paid off the house early. Hey, babe, I called her that evening, keeping my voice casual. You look nice this morning. New outfit? Just something I picked up, she responded, her voice carrying that new edge, defensive and sharp. There was a work function. You wouldn't understand the dress code. I wouldn't understand. When had I become someone who wouldn't understand? That night, I lay awake, listening to her breathe beside me, wondering when her breathing had started to sound like a stranger's. She murmured something in her sleep, a name maybe, or just a dream, and rolled away from me. The next morning, I decided to surprise her at work for lunch. Just show up with sandwiches from Murphy's like I used to do when we were dating. I called Morrison and Associates to make sure she didn't have a meeting. The receptionist's confused voice still echoes in my mind. "Laura Hayes? I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have anyone by that name working here." I sat in my truck outside Morrison and Associates for 20 minutes, engine off, staring at the building's glass doors. 3 people had gone in and out. None of them were Laura. My hands gripped the steering wheel hard enough to leave marks. 17 years of marriage, and my wife had been lying about where she worked. The receptionist had checked twice, even looked for similar names. No Laura Hayes, no Laura. Williams, her maiden name. Nobody named Laura at all. I called her Cell. "Hey, hun," she answered, sounding breathless, distracted. "What's up?" "Just thinking about grabbing lunch." "Where are you?" I asked. "Oh, Ethan, I'm sorry," she replied quickly. "Back-to-back meetings all day. The quarterly reports are due and Logan needs—" A door closed in the background. "I have to go. Love you." The line went dead. I sat there another 10 minutes, watching the actual employees of Morrison and Associates eat their lunches on the bench outside. A small accounting firm, according to the sign. Maybe 6 employees total. I drove home and did what I'd done for 20 years when faced with a problem. I got methodical. In my garage workshop, I kept maintenance logs for everything. The truck, the lawnmower, the house repairs. I pulled out a fresh notebook and wrote on the cover, "LH work schedule discrepancies." If I was going to figure this out, I'd treat it like a quality control issue at the plant. Document everything. Look for patterns. Find the failure point. Day 1. Laura left at 7:45 a.m. Claims to work until 7 p.m. Car spotted at Riverside Shopping Center at 2 p.m. Day 2. Emergency budget meeting, Thursday night. Home at 11:30 p.m. Smelled like cologne. Not mine. Day 3. Saturday. Team building workshop. Gone 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Morrison and Associates closed on weekends. For 3 weeks, I documented everything. I'd taken vacation days, told Laura I was working overtime to cover someone's shift. Instead, I followed her. I felt like a stranger in my own life, tailing my wife through our small city like some private detective in a bad movie. But patterns emerged, clear as defective welds under inspection. Tuesdays and Thursdays were the late nights. Always. Like clockwork. Her car never went to Morrison and Associates. Not once. Usually, she'd drive to Riverside Shopping Center, park, and then get into another car, a black Audi I didn't recognize. Sometimes she'd drive to the Grandview Hotel, the fancy place where the plant had its Christmas party every year. Her stories got more elaborate. Conference calls with Tokyo, she'd claim. Morrison and Associates was a local firm. Training seminars in Chicago, she'd insist. She never packed a bag. Team dinners at restaurants I'd suggested we try, she'd mention. Restaurants she'd previously said were too expensive for us. The clothes kept appearing. Designer labels hidden in the back of her closet. Lingerie I'd never seen. A jewelry box with earrings that weren't from me. Week 3. Tuesday night. I followed her to the Grandview. I parked in the overflow lot, watched her walk through the lobby doors. She moved differently. Confident, swaying, alive in a way I hadn't seen in years. She checked her reflection in the glass doors, smoothed. Her dress, the $400 dress, I realized, and disappeared inside. I waited 2 hours. She came out with a man, Logan Donovan. I looked him up later. Real estate developer, married, 2 kids, big house on the west side. Political connections. His picture was in the paper at every charity gala. They stood too close. He touched her elbow, leaned in to say something that made her throw her head back and laugh. That laugh I thought was mine. They walked to separate cars, but their goodbye lingered. She touched his face. I drove home and managed to be in bed, feigning sleep, when she slipped in at midnight. "Emergency at work," she whispered to my back. "Go back to sleep." I lay there, smelling that cologne. again feeling the bed dip as she settled in, and made my decision. The next morning after she left for her fake job, I called Jim Reynolds. He'd done security work for the plant before retiring, mentioned once he'd started doing private investigation. "Jim, it's Ethan Hayes. I need your help with something." "Professionally," I said. "What kind of something?" he asked. I stared at our wedding photo on the dresser. "The kind that ends marriages," I answered. "I see," he replied quietly. "When do you want to start?" "Immediately," I told him. "For the next 2 weeks, I'll have to kiss her goodbye every morning and pretend I believe her lies, knowing that somewhere across town, she's building a life that doesn't include me." Jim Reynolds sat across from me at my kitchen table, a manila folder thick as a phone book between us. 2 weeks of investigation condensed into photographs, bank records, and surveillance logs. He'd been thorough. "You sure you want to see this?" he asked, his weathered face showing the concern of a man who'd delivered bad news too many times. "I need to know everything," I replied. The photographs came first. Laura entering the Grandview Hotel with Logan Donovan. Laura leaving the Grandview Hotel with Logan Donovan. Laura at restaurants I couldn't afford, laughing over wine. Laura in a car I didn't recognize, kissing a man who wasn't me. Weekend trips to Lake Geneva. The same weekend she'd told me she was at a work conference in Milwaukee. "This one's from 8 months ago," Jim said, sliding a photo across. "A hotel receipt from before she even claimed to have. Started her job at Morrison & Associates. 8 months. I'd been living in a fool's paradise for 8 months. It gets worse," he continued. "The financial records made my hands shake. Credit cards I didn't know existed, all in her maiden name. Thousands in charges. Clothes, restaurants, hotels, even plane tickets. Cash withdrawals from our joint savings, small enough to avoid notice individually, but adding up to nearly $15,000 over 4 months. "There's an apartment," Jim said quietly. "Downtown, lease signed 3 months ago. Laura Williams, not Hayes." He showed me photos of a furnished 1-bedroom in a converted loft building. Modern, expensive. The kind of place she'd always said was too trendy, too impractical. There were photos of her there with Donovan, cooking dinner together, watching movies on a couch I'd never seen, playing house while I worked night shifts to pay for our actual house. "How long would you say this has been going on?" I asked, though the evidence was clear. "Based on the paper trail, 8 months minimum," he answered. "But Ethan..." Jim pulled out another document. "This is what concerns me most." It was a consultation receipt from a divorce attorney dated 4 months ago, 4 months into her affair. She'd been planning her exit while still sleeping beside me every night. "There's more," he continued. "She's been telling people, telling him, that you're abusive, controlling, that she's scared to leave." "What?" I said, my blood going cold. Jim showed me text messages he'd somehow obtained. Laura to Logan. "Ethan's getting suspicious. I'm scared." "What he'll do if he finds out." Logan to Laura. "We'll protect you. Just a little longer and you'll be free." Laura to Logan. "Sometimes I think he knows, the way he looks at me. If something happens to me..." "She's building a case," Jim explained. "Making you the villain so she comes out the victim in the divorce. With these accusations and the prenup you signed." The prenup. Laura had insisted on it before we married, said it was to protect both of us. I'd thought it was strange. Neither of us had anything back then, but I'd signed it because I loved her, trusted her. Now I understood. She'd been planning exit strategies before she'd even said, "I do." "What do I do?" I asked him. "You get smart. You get a lawyer. You protect yourself," he advised. The next morning, I met with David Brennan, the best divorce attorney in the city. He reviewed everything Jim had found, his expression growing grimmer with each page. "The good news is, her deception works in your favor," he said. "The hidden assets, the false accusations, the financial fraud. It could void the prenup entirely. The bad news is, if she files first with abuse allegations, you're playing defense from day one. We spent 3 hours building a strategy. documenting her spending, protecting my assets, preparing counter-documentation to her false claims. 17. Years of employment records showing no violence, character witnesses, even old emails and cards from Laura herself talking about what a gentle, caring husband I was. "When do you want to file?" David asked. "Not yet," I answered. "I want irrefutable evidence, something she can't deny or spin." For the next month, I became someone I didn't recognize. I installed tracking software on her car. Legal, David assured me, since my name was on the title. I documented every lie, every absence, every dollar spent. I opened my own accounts, moved my direct deposits, started protecting what was mine. But the hardest part was playing normal, kissing her goodbye each morning, eating dinners across from her, listening to her lies about meetings and conferences while knowing she'd spent the afternoon in another man's bed. "The company retreat is coming up," she announced one Thursday. 3 days at a resort upstate, mandatory attendance. I found the charge on Donovan's credit card statement. Jim had ways of finding things. A romantic package at Mountain View, resort, king suite, couples massage, champagne on arrival. "I'll miss you," she said that Friday morning, kissing me goodbye with a smile. "Miss you too," I replied, knowing that in 12 hours she'd be in a hotel room with another man. But this time I'd be ready for her. The call came at 12:47 a.m. on Saturday night. I knew the exact time because I'd been sitting at the kitchen table, David Brennan's divorce papers spread before me, a glass of whiskey untouched at my elbow. The papers would be served Monday morning. Laura's fantasy world would come crashing down in 60 hours. "Mr. Hayes, this is St. Mary's Hospital. Your wife has been in an accident," the voice on the phone said. The drive to the hospital was 20 minutes of pure adrenaline, not because I was worried. That emotion had died somewhere between the credit card statements and the apartment photos, but because I needed to know what had happened, how bad, what it meant for Monday's plan. The emergency room was chaos. I found a nurse, explained who I was. "Your wife is stable," she informed me. "Broken ribs, concussion, lacerations from the glass. She's conscious and asking for you." "And the driver?" I asked. Her expression darkened. "He's in surgery," she replied quietly. It's not looking good. The car hit a barrier at 70 miles an hour. Logan Donovan. The name was on the intake form I glimpsed at the nurse's station. I stood outside Laura's room for a full minute, preparing myself. Through the small window I could see her, bandaged, bruised, an IV in her arm. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the confident woman who'd walked into the Grandview Hotel all those Tuesday nights. When I entered, her eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, thank God you're here," she cried out, reaching for me and wincing at the movement. "I was so scared. The car came out of nowhere, and then we were spinning, and I thought I might die without seeing you again." I sat in the visitor's chair, just out of reach. "Tell me what happened," I said. She paused, that familiar calculating look flickering across her face even through the pain. "The company retreat ended early, bad weather coming in. Sharon from accounting offered to drive a few of us back together. Her husband, he must have been drinking. He was driving so fast, and then..." Even now, even lying in a hospital bed, possibly having watched a man die, she was lying to me. "Sharon from accounting," I repeated flatly. "You don't know her. She's new," she insisted, her hand finding mine, gripping it with desperate strength. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I know I've been distant lately. Work has been so demanding, but almost losing my life. It's shown me what's important. Us, our marriage." I let her talk, let her spin her story about the accident, about her regrets, about how she wanted to quit her job and focus on us. She promised counseling, date nights, maybe even finally trying for kids. The whole performance was Oscar-worthy. "I love you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I've always loved you. Please don't leave me. Not now, not when I need you most." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out Jim Reynolds' folder. The slim version, just the highlights. I set it on her bedside table and opened it to the first photo. Laura and Logan at the Grandview, dated 2 months ago. Her face went white. "Ethan, I can explain," she started. I flipped to the next photo. The apartment. Then the credit card statements. The hotel receipts. 8 months of evidence, laid out like autopsy photos. "How long?" she whispered. "How long have I known?" 2 months, I answered. I pulled out another document. The divorce. Papers, signed and ready. "These would have been served Monday. Your prenup is void, by the way. Financial fraud nullifies it. The apartment, the credit cards, the theft from our joint accounts. My lawyer says you'll be lucky to walk away with your car." "Ethan, please," she begged. "I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything." 8 months doesn't mean anything. $15,000 stolen doesn't mean anything. Telling people I'm abusive doesn't mean anything, I asked. She flinched. "How did you—" she began. "I know everything, Laura," I interrupted. "The fake job, the weekend trips, the text messages where you set me up as some kind of monster so you could play the victim. Your parents are on their way. I called them an hour ago, told them everything. They're devastated, but they'll take care of you. You can't leave me like this," she said, her voice rising with panic. "I'm hurt. I need you." "Logan Donovan has a wife," I said quietly. "Had a wife. She's probably getting a call right about now finding out her husband was cheating. Their kids are about to learn what kind of man their father really was. If he survives." I moved toward the door. "I could have forgiven an affair," I told her, not looking back. "People make mistakes. But you planned this. You stole from me. You tried to destroy my reputation. You built an entire fake life while I was working night shifts to pay for our real one." "Ethan!" she screamed. "You can't do this! I'll tell everyone what you really are! I'll ruin you!" I stopped at the door. "With what proof? 17 years of being a model husband? While you have 8 months of documented deception? Good luck with that," I replied. As I walked through those hospital doors for the last time, I heard her screaming my name. But I didn't look back. Some bridges, once burned, are meant to stay that way. 6 months later, I stood in my office at Midwest Steel Works. Day shift now, a window with a view of something other than loading docks. The promotion to plant manager had come through 3 months ago. Turns out, when you're not spending all your energy wondering why your wife is lying to you, you can focus on your career. The divorce was finalized 4 months ago. Laura got nothing except what she'd hidden in her secret accounts. About $1,000 after the lawyer fees. The house, the savings, my pension. All protected thanks to David Brennan and her documented deception. She'd tried to fight it at first, but when David presented the full evidence file, now including Logan Donovan's widow's testimony about the affair, her lawyer advised her to take the deal and run. Logan survived the accident, but left town within a month. His wife took the kids and half of everything. His political career ended when the police report became public. He'd been drinking, texting Laura while driving, speeding back from their romantic weekend. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in Florida. Laura lives in a 1-bedroom apartment on the east side. Not the trendy downtown loft. That dream died with her fantasy life. Her parents, Frank and Dorothy, still invite me for Sunday dinner once a month. It's surreal but oddly comforting. "We raised her better than this," Frank had said to me over coffee last week. "Whatever happened to her, wherever she lost her way, that's on her, not you." Dorothy always sets Laura's old place at the table, but never mentions her absence. There's a photo of their daughter on the mantle, from high school before she became someone none of us recognized. "She wrote you a letter?" Dorothy mentioned quietly last month, sliding an envelope across the table. I took it home, held it over the garbage can for a full minute, then dropped it in my fireplace unopened. Some words don't deserve to be heard. I'm dating now. Nothing serious yet. Her name's Carol. She works day shift in accounting, and she's never once mentioned anyone named Logan. We go to dinner at normal restaurants at normal times. She laughs at my bad jokes and doesn't check her phone during meals. It's simple, honest, real, everything I thought I had before. Sometimes, working late in my office, I think about those 17 years. Were there signs I missed? Red flags I ignored? Maybe. Or maybe people just change, shed their old selves like snakes shed skin, leaving behind something that looks familiar, but isn't. Last week, I drove past the Grandview Hotel on my way to a meeting. They were renovating, tearing down the old facade to build something new. I thought about stopping, watching the demolition, but decided against it. Some things are better left to crumble on their own. Laura taught me something valuable, though I paid too much for the lesson. Trust is like steel. It can bear tremendous weight, endure incredible pressure, but once it cracks, it can never be exactly what it was before. You can patch it, reinforce it, work around it, but the weakness remains. The sun sets outside my office window, painting the steel yard in shades of orange and gold. Second shift is starting, men and women I've worked alongside for 2 decades, heading to their stations. Good, honest people who show up, do their jobs, go home to lives that are exactly what they appear to be. My phone buzzes, Carol, asking if I want to grab pizza after work. Yes, I text back, already looking forward to the simple pleasure of sharing a meal with someone who wants to be exactly where they are. Some stories end with reconciliation, forgiveness, a second chance at love. This isn't one of those stories. This is a story about a man who discovered his wife was a stranger, who chose truth over comfortable lies, who burned down a false life rather than live in it one more day. I regret many things, the wasted years, the stolen money, the fool I was for so long. But walking out of that hospital room, leaving Laura to face the consequences of her choices, starting over at 43 with nothing but truth and freedom, I'd do it again tomorrow. Some bridges once burned light the way forward. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.